Jordan Nguyen to come up to the stage. Jordan's our second speaker for this and is going to extend questions of liminality to generational differences and talk about emerging generations between this and the next. He's the founder and CEO of Psykinetic. He's also the author of a new book, Human's Guide to the Future, which has been doing extremely well, released during the pandemic, and which is widely available. And he's going to share a little bit of the insight of that book with us here today. So Jordan, please come to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and Her Excellency Governor of New South Wales, the Royal Society of New South Wales, and the 4 Academies. Thank you so much for having me here today, and a big thanks to Susan as well for reaching out. I am going to step it up a notch in the tempo of this. Thank you for that beautiful talk from Genevieve. I'm not quite as calm and thoughtful. I tend to move with a bit of speed, and so that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to take you through a bit of my adventures through the world of science and technology, very briefly in about 20 minutes, and what I've come to learn about the next generations. These emerging generations are amazing. They're dealing with new challenges that have never been there before, and at the same time, they're connected in a way that we've never had that type of connection in younger generations before. They know what's going on around the globe. So I'm going to take you very quickly through a little bit of my life and what I get to see out there in the world as a TV presenter for ABC and Discovery Channel, outside of my other work as an engineer and creator of technology. What I've found through all of my adventures is that life may just be closer to fantasy than we think. Now, we're living in this amazing time that feels like it's in the realms of magic. And these are the sort of things I've gotten to see out there. Through my Discovery Channel documentaries, I've gotten to travel the world, finding out what is happening in science and technology. I've seen the world's fastest electric hypercar, amazing electric autonomous vehicles, advancements in electronics, nanotechnology, holographic technology, drones, not just drones that you can fly really quickly, but drones that you can also get inside. These are passenger-carrying autonomous electric mega drones, all the way through to genetics and genomics research, new manufacturing techniques, finding out what is actually happening around the globe, but not just the science and the technology. How does it affect us? How do humans come to thrive in different areas? I was privileged enough to go out to Tibet and see how humans have come to thrive in harsh conditions, high altitude, and where I definitely got altitude sickness upon turning up. But I got to meet amazing people, learn about the culture, learn about the science and technology there. I wasn't expecting to find a massive cosmic ray station up in Tibet, but that's what I got to go and see. And this is something that, here it is, this is something that can detect cosmic rays that get sent out from supernova events when stars blow up and they send particles streaming through space. They hit our atmosphere and they shower down. So having detectors up high is actually a really good way of being able to model out where those particles came from and trace back their origins. I've learned a lot, and even in the most remote village that I went to that had never been visited by a foreigner before, I didn't know there were any of those still remaining. I found that I still had internet connectivity. So I was managing my team from this remote village in the middle of nowhere. I got to work on the most challenging train line in the world and then see how genetics and genomics research has been used to make super crops to withstand harsher conditions and even desert conditions. I've seen so much out there, and I've also gotten to understand what the next generations coming through are like. They are incredible. They're dealing with, like I said, challenges that we have never had to face before. I've seen kids in primary school worrying that they're not going to be able to earn enough money to support their family and buy a house. And at the age of, in grades 5, looking at around the age of about 9, 10 years old, I'm thinking, you shouldn't be worrying about these sort of things. You should be kids running around, but that's just what happens. At the same time, if you give them these tools to create, they can do incredible things with that. So I'll come back to it. I've gotten to speak for hundreds of thousands of school kids across the world. I've managed to speak in other countries as well, and it's been an amazing thing to just learn what is out there, what's going on, and start to distill it into a few different pieces of information. So what I'm going to start with is inspiration and purpose, because I think we should always start with that. Whenever we're looking at what we're going to do as we move into the future, we should find those areas of inspiration and start with that purpose. And that's what I do in all of my adventures, all of my journeys, and all of the projects that I run, which I will take you through in a little bit. My inspirations come from both my parents. Here's a picture of my father, Professor Jordan Nguyen. He is an Order of Australia recipient. He was a finalist in New South Wales for Australian of the Year a while back, and he's an amazing person. He's someone who has inspired me my entire life. He's Vietnamese, he's a big mind, he's a future thinker. He was always able to see what was going on in the future, and he would always make those predictions throughout my life, and he still does. He's now the Pro Vice Chancellor at Swinburne University, and he just continues to amaze me. My mum is also equally as incredible. She is an artist. She's Australian, or she's actually Aussie-Scottish. And my parents, after me, decided to have one more child when I was 3.5 years old. This one child turned up, and it actually turned out to be 3 because they got triplets. So I ended up with 2 brothers and a sister, and we grew up in Western Sydney. We had a very simple upbringing. It was very simple times, and we didn't have a lot of toys or anything. So I started noticing one day when my toys were disappearing, the few toys that I had, I started noticing them going away, and my father was taking them to work with him. So I had this lucky opportunity when I was 6 years old to go into work to find out what my father was working on. And artificial intelligence has come up a few times already. Today we've heard of it mentioned from Peter and from Genevieve. Artificial intelligence as a term has been around since 1956. And we've had these rises and falls over the many generations, over the many decades, these rises and falls. And this was during the second AI winter. Every time it fell, it meant that it was very hard to get any research funding, very hard to get any publications over the line. But during the second AI winter, my father could still see this had a future, so he was working on it, as well as the embodiment into robotics. And so he was working on this robot. I found this big pillar robot. It had a claw in front of it, it had a camera in the claw facing down, it had a camera over the top facing down. And what he would do is he'd put my little toys, I had Duplo blocks and those sort of things, he'd put those types of toys on a conveyor belt, and they would move along, and this robot would watch them, and it would go and pick it up and move it elsewhere. And he was doing a lot of work in both fuzzy logic and neural networks. And what this robot was doing was it was starting to learn for itself. I could see it actually solving problems. It went on to play games like noughts and crosses and checkers and chess. Here it was playing chess, and actually this was checkers. Whenever it was taking one of my pieces, when I played it in chess, it would take my piece to the edge of the board and just dump it. I don't know who programmed it to do that. But then it would take its piece and carefully place it in the position it took. I thought it was taunting me, and I could see that from a young age, that it had a personality. And this is anthropomorphism. This is where we project human personalities and characteristics onto things that aren't human. And so to me, I had a bit of a robot friend in this RTX robot. But it gave me a bit of inspiration for the future. Now, I didn't turn out to be an academic student. I wasn't doing very well in high school. In fact, I was in the bottom half of my high school. But I did manage to get into electrical engineering, where I started to work on robotics and started to learn about artificial intelligence. And then I wanted to apply it, because what I realised over all the years was that I was a lot closer with my mum. I was on the artistic side, the very social, compassionate side. So when I was able to start learning these technologies and applying them to something that mattered to me, it all started to make sense. Now, this is what I worked on for my undergraduate thesis and my PhD, which was a mind-controlled smart wheelchair. I started this project in 2006 when I thought it was impossible, but the headband, this is a friend of mine, Albert, he's wearing a headband that picks up the electrical activity of the brain, electroencephalography, tiny little electrical signals. We send that into the computer runs neural networks, which I was custom making to try and tell the difference between those thought patterns. So it's not reading your mind, it's just recognising when it's seeing thought patterns that it's seen before. So it finds patterns and differences in those signals. You associate a different signal, a different thought, with a different movement. And so then what happened was I was able to work with many of my friends who I started meeting. How I came to work in disability was in my third year of uni, I dived into a backyard pool and went straight into the bottom of it and almost broke my own neck. I spent a day and a half not able to move or roll over, and it changed my perspective on everything. I realised how lucky I got. And I started looking into the technologies, and I found out the technologies available at the time. There's a joystick to control a power wheelchair, or you could move it to the chin, which becomes the chin stick. Otherwise, there was a sip and puff method, a tube in front of the face that the famous Christopher Reeve used. Apart from that, there wasn't really anything else to control a wheelchair. So that's why I started working on brain-computer interfaces, because I wanted to work with some of my friends who had very high-level disability, from spinal cord injuries to strokes, cerebral palsy and the likes. And I started with friends who were on the high levels, indicative of locked-in syndrome, meaning my friends, in most cases, were only able to move their eyes. And so that's why I thought, if we can harness the power of the thoughts here, wouldn't that be an amazing thing to control a wheelchair with? So at the end of my PhD, this was a video from 2011. At the end of my PhD, we had successful trials with 20 people, and I definitely did make many mistakes along the way and had to cancel my first set of trials. But this is something that we're teaching the kids of today, is that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. You'll learn from those mistakes. And that was something I saw in the RTX robot. It would make mistakes and it would try again. Why would we ever build a fear of failure into robots? We don't. That's why they get so good at what they do. And so this is the sort of thing that we're trying to teach our younger generations coming through, and trying to relearn ourselves as well. So one life persists to improve many was something that I engraved on the back of my iPod as I was leaving university in 2012 and going out into the world. And I engraved this so that I could keep it with me at all times. And this was becoming my driver. It was becoming my purpose, that I was wanting to find out how I could improve the lives of as many people as possible during my one life. And this is the sort of thing that I took through with me to make some pretty big decisions. Made a very big decision to leave a big job at the biggest biomedical company in Australia to go and work for a charity and build my first social business. And this social business is called Psykinetic. Psyche and kinetic, it's putting the mind into action. And we make it exciting. We're realising we're working with a lot of young people who are still finding their own identity, and we thought we'd make it exciting. We'll use animations in this, and we'll build technologies, but we'll also harness the technologies out there and bring them together to make them more inclusive, because we've got this massive toolkit of amazing technologies out in the world that we can harness. This one in particular is an eye tracker. It's an eye tracker you can buy from the States. You can connect it onto a computer, so the eye tracker is just beneath it. It tracks where the person is looking. So this is a 3-year-old friend of mine who has cerebral palsy. She might never walk, might never speak, but she can control this with her eyes, this game, and she jumps every time she crashes. She was very cute. Now, she showed through this video recording, this was the first time her parents had proof that she understood everything going on around her, because they knew that, but they couldn't communicate that to other people because her response is not in the way that most people communicate. And so with this different form of connection and communication, we're able to find through some simple games that she understood what was going on, she understood the task, she was problem solving, and she knew where the reset button was, which is why that was about the 10th try she had run it through. So this all leads to this amazing quote that I've always loved. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, by Professor Stephen Hawking. Now, Genevieve has worked with Stephen for many years, and is this one of his quotes? It is good, excellent. I've got the thumbs up on that. This is a quote that I've absolutely loved, because in this day and age we are moving so rapidly. We're at the fastest rate of change we've ever seen. It may be one of the slowest rates we'll ever see again, and this is something that we've got to take into account, is that we are globally moving in this incredible pace of change. So today, for the generations coming through, for ourselves, adaptability is key. And this is what I'm seeing. The next generation's coming through. You give them the tools to create, and you give them their own ability to come up with their purpose, their inspiration, their own ideas, and it's amazing what you can find. I'm just going to share a couple of stories really quickly here. These two girls were years 5 and 6 when I met them. They were given a project to come up with any project utilising a new technology. They could choose whatever it was they wanted to do. Now, both these girls have parents who are doctors, and they said to me, well, we understand how the heart works, but the other kids in our class don't really know how it works. They don't know about heart disease. They don't know about anything like that, and they don't really want to read from a book. And the 10-year-old girl, the one in the middle, she said to me, yeah, we're a really multimodal generation, you know. She said, so we don't want to just read from books. And I went, oh, okay. And then I turned around and Googled multimodal generation. because they want to interact with the content in many other ways other than just reading or just listening. They want to be able to interact with the content. And so these two girls came up with this great idea to educate the other kids in the class by building a virtual reality experience. Now, keep this in mind, this was in 2015. This would be great today, but this was in 2015, so the technology was still just starting to emerge. We're still grasping what virtual reality is, whether it's a gimmick or whether it's something that's here to stay this time. It was around in the late 80s, early 90s, died out. World focused on the rise of the internet instead. But this is what happened here. The two girls came up with this idea. They looked online and found a free tool called Blender, where they were able to create a three-dimensional heart on the screen. It's kind of like clay on a computer. They're able to make the heart, the valves, the blood cells, and then they brought it into another free tool called Unity. It's a game development engine. And then they deployed it to the Oculus Rift headset. Now what happened was when I put the headset on, I found myself shrunk down inside the heart watching the blood cells fly past, and then I took a theme park tour ride through it. You never understand how much the heart works until you've taken a theme park tour ride through it. And I said, it's like the movie Inner Space. Inner Space, surely you've watched this. And they went, huh? No, you came up with this idea yourself. Okay, it's fantastic. The generations coming through are amazing. And they're going to interact on that realm, in this realm of imagination, this realm of digital and virtual. They will interact in different ways. And they're going to learn in different ways. And this is where any generation before them could start to look at the technology. Now, I talked to my mum about this not long after it. I was starting to look at the technologies of artificial intelligence, of virtual reality, cloud computing. I was saying to my mum, look, the technology is here for us to do something wild, like create a virtual copy of a person. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I said, I want to do this for you. I want to be able to have basically digital representations of my parents so future generations in my family can know them for who they are, but not just watch like a video, to interact with instead, to be able to have a conversation, because that's how we really sort of connect with the person. And I was saying I would have loved that of my grandfather, my mum's father. He passed away just before I was 2, and I remind so much of my family of him, of my grandfather. And so I was saying I would love to be able to create something like this. So I did this documentary, ABC Catalyst, Meet the Avatars, and I went out and found someone else's grandparents. And this beautiful couple, Maureen and Miguel, they've been together for 50 years, and I wanted to work with them on exposing them to what virtual reality was all about, and then to create a digital copy of Miguel. Now what I did was I sat with him for 3 hours. We interviewed him, green screen behind him, took the 2D video, wrapped it around a 3-dimensional version of him on the computer. Then what happens is you find yourself, when you put a headset on, you find yourself sitting across a virtual table from virtual Miguel, and he will speak only when you ask a question. When you ask a question, it's kind of like your phone, kind of like Siri or any voice assistant. It goes through a natural language processor, takes out the words that you're trying to say, then goes through to match up in his database. Does your question match one of his answers? If there's a match, he'll speak. So he's never going to say anything that he hasn't actually said before. It's an interactive recording, but it's one that feels incredibly real. And so this is basically a capture of a person in time and space. And this is how we will be able to impart so much of our knowledge to the next generations through interaction. Here's what happened when we got Maureen in the headset to meet her virtual husband. Oh, Miguel, isn't he so sweet? Now, this is something that we've worked with a number of families on now, and what we have found is every family we've worked with, it's drawn the family closer because they ask questions they otherwise wouldn't have asked before. And they're learning about their family members, their parents, and learning those stories and capturing them in a way that they can have those interactive conversations with. This is a big project that we have in Psykinetic at the moment because our focus tends to be in the disability sector and in aged care. And so these are some of the projects that we're working on, and hopefully we'll be able to take Psykinetic much further from here. We're going to be raising some funding very soon and moving in a much bigger direction, a lot more global. Now here's the idea: dream big, take action. It's brave to dream, but it's so much braver to act. So what we do here is we come up with these wild ideas, and this is just a few of the projects that you've seen today, but bringing it back to the children of today, when you believe in the younger generations coming through, when you guide them and realise that the technologies are here as a tool that we can harness, if we so choose, to create a better world, then magic happens. Now, this is the first documentary I ever did with ABC called Becoming Superhuman. I'm going to show you a little bit about this. It's my friend Riley. He was 13 years old at this point in time, and he was born with high-level cerebral palsy. This affects all of his movements and his ability to speak. So he connects with the world through his eyes. He communicates through his eyes. And those eyes are incredibly emotive. He really does just change you instantly when you meet him. And so I met this young guy in 2014. In 2016, we went on this adventure together. And I said to him, look, we're going to design something so you can control the lights and the TV in the home, so you can have that independence in your home. But if you could control anything, any technology at all, what would you want to do? And he told me, he let me know through his eyes, through connecting with the computer, he let me know he wants to drive a car. And I just went, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, if this is your dream, we're going to make this happen. So what we did was we adapted a lot of the technologies we're already working on, a lot of the technology from my PhD, working on the idea of picking up the electrical signals of the brain. The idea is have a big dream and get started. Before we knew everything, we started mapping out exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build a headband, and I did all of this on camera with my team, brought my young team along. Riley had to push his own limits as well, and we did all of it on camera. We wanted all of it to be real, all in 4 weeks. So what we did was we built a headband that picks up the little electrical signals of the eyes. Whenever you move your eyes, your brain sends electrical signals to the little muscles that push and pull the eyes. So we harness those. We pick up the little electrical signals, send them through a computer. That goes through a bit of AI to detect what angle and which direction you're looking. And then it sends it down into the buggy, into the off-road buggy that we managed to find to move the motors. It also has a laser rangefinder, which scans the area really quickly, which is on a lot of autonomous vehicles these days, sends it over a cloud service down to a little computer next to him, feeds it in vibrations to his arms. What it means is he's going to see, he's going to control the environment and control the vehicle. He's going to control the vehicle with his eyes, but he can feel the environment at the same time. He can feel all the collisions before they happen. Basically designed this the way I'd design a robot, but I made him the centre of it all to show how amazing and how adaptable the human brain is. And if we believe in young people, it's incredible what happens. Check this out. Quite hard to drive with your eyes. He looked at the thing you didn't want to crash into and straight into it. But he let us know he was going to go back to the start and he was going to go again and again and again until he made it all the way from start to end of this obstacle course in a single run. We didn't tell him to do that. He did that himself and he would not give up. Check this out. It's amazing. It was amazing. That was the best adventure that we've ever gone on. And, oh, thank you. Well, Riley went on to inspire young people all across the world, and that was the idea. You just give that belief, you realise that the technology is there as a tool. We mentioned in the start, many of these adventures I've gone in and thrown into this book, A Human's Guide to the Future, because we need to be able to disseminate the knowledge of what is happening out there, what science and technology is available to us, what can we achieve with it, but also the next generations coming through, they are going to start building the new world with these technologies. They've got a different understanding to anyone before them, and it's not like I would say it's not a more in-depth understanding, it's just different. It's just different. Their understanding of the world is greater because of the connection across the world. Their understanding of the technology is very quick to adapt to the new technologies coming our way and to understand what they can do with those technologies. So let's hope they build that next new world, that better world. And for that, we have to guide them. We have to guide them towards it. So we must all dream big and take action and realise that we are only limited by our own imagination. Can I leave with a 1-minute poem? I've got a 1-minute poem that I got to perform for a social impact challenge recently, and this encapsulates this sort of story and what we should do with the next generations as well, because this is the direction we're moving in. We're starting to move into this direction where we will all build that better world. We're starting to rewrite that unwritten future. We're looking to the past. We're looking to stand on the shoulders of giants and to build this better world together, and that's where we must move. It's brave to dream, but it is so much braver to act. We all have the strength to make tomorrow change tact. If we just come together, say, I've got your back, and mean it. I mean, really mean it. I mean, have you seen it? We're like tectonic plates. If we all shift restlessly, then soon enough the rest will see us break new ground. We will wake the crowds, we'll make them proud. You'll see. Just look around you. From coast to coast and plains between, we'll heal the wounds of pains unseen and warm the cold with sweeter dreams and welcome brighter mornings. We'll coax imaginations forth and nurture minds and foster worth so that our nation's children rise to answer each their calling. With stories told in mother tongue of stringy barks and ochre suns, we keep our languages alive, our history still recording. You've always, since the dawn of time, been made of something, made to climb. So do it now and make it count. Stand up, stand out, move forward, don't swerve. Back the forward thinkers forging futures we deserve. Be the kind of person who draws up each rising sun. Let's stop dreaming of a better world and make one. Thank you so much.